The number one thing I get asked is, how do I get started as a beginner in real estate? So let's dive right in. Now, this question gets asked all the time because I work with a lot of people that are getting into the business, but by the end of this video, I promise you, I'm going to tell you exactly what you need to do as a beginner to get started in real estate. I'm also going to address what is wholesaling, right? Because a lot of you might not know. I'm also going to talk about other strategies other than wholesaling that you can do as a beginner to make money. And also, if you want to get into real estate, how do you get into it? Like, what's the first step? What's the first thing you do? So stay tuned. I'm going to go over all these things and let's get you making some money. So let's talk about what is wholesaling. Because if you're a beginner, you don't know what it is, I'm going to give you an in-depth answer and I'll make it quick. Wholesaling, all it is finding a distressed property. It's finding a seller who wants to sell a house and you get that house under contract. You literally go sign a real estate purchase contract with that seller, with that person, and saying you're going to buy their house. But what you have is you have an assignable contract. You have a contract that you're able to assign to someone else to purchase the house, and you're able to assign that to someone for a fee. So what you're doing is you're finding a distressed property, you're finding a deal, and you already have a buyer in place that you know will pay more. And what you do is you say, hey buyer, I have this house for this amount. I'm going to sell it to you. Are you willing to pay $10,000 more than what I have it for? Or you can actually tell them, that's what I tell my buyers, say, hey, I just threw my fee on. Are you able to pay that? Or if you don't want to tell them the price, you could just say, hey, I'm asking $60,000. And you know you have it under 50 for $50,000 that you're purchasing it for. So you're going to make $10,000 without having to purchase the property at all. That is what wholesaling is. So what are some strategies as a beginner that can help you get into wholesaling? Well, you're going to need to have relationships in order to get deals done. And that's primarily what I teach, is how to develop relationships with those cash buyers that you can assign deals to. So if you're brand new, a beginner, the very first thing that I recommend that you do is go to a real estate investing meetup, all right? All you have to do is go to Google, type in real estate investing meetups near me, and you're gonna have a lot of them. I actually have a monthly meetup that's absolutely free in Utah that people go to, and they ask questions, and we're all there to help. And you best believe that buyers go there because they want to work with newer investors that want to bring them deals. That's how I actually got a ton of buyers when I first started, as I would go to those meetups and I'd say, hey, this is a deal. I don't know if it's a deal. Will you buy it? And then they'd say, no, your deal stinks. And then I would learn that I did not have a good deal. So if you're brand new, if you're a beginner and you want to get started, that is a great way to get started, finding buyers and just learning, okay? Another great way to get started as a beginner in wholesaling is calling title companies. You can call a title company and say, hey, look, I'm brand new to investing, but I'd like to get into it. Do you have any contacts for me? Do you have any buyers I can work with? Now, I do this a lot. I go to a brand new area where I don't have buyers and I say, hey, who is buying right now? I find deals, I wholesale, I fix and flip, I do it all, but I'm primarily looking to wholesale. Who do you have here that's buying properties that I can bring a deal to? That's a great way. Another great way to get started as a brand new beginner is go to Facebook groups. All you have to do is type in real estate investing Facebook groups, real estate investing in Atlanta, or Atlanta real estate investors, or Utah real estate investors. In those Facebook groups, there are groups of either wholesalers, agents, real estate investors. They're all in there and they're wanting to network and get deals. So those are primarily what I would do when I'm brand new and beginning as a real estate investor, okay, as a wholesaler. So another thing to do as a beginner is you're going to need to pick up that phone. I know it's going to be kind of scary to call an agent or call a seller or call a buyer when you don't know what to say, but really the best way to learn is just taking action, okay? Like you can watch me, you can watch thousands and hours of videos, but until you pick up that phone, you're not gonna feel confident about taking action, all right? So I want you to just know it's gonna be uncomfortable, you're not gonna know what to say, but that's how you get started. When I first started, I just got on a cold calling. I got a list, I got on a Mojo dialer or batch dialer. If you don't know much about dialers, it's basically you put a list in there and you can call the people that you put into the dialer, and it just does an auto dial. And so I was just calling people and asking if they want to sell, and it got uncomfortable. I felt weird, but after a while, it wasn't weird because I learned and I had a script. So that is another way to get started. Just pick up the phone and start taking action. So I actually have an in-depth process that I'm going to show you right now that talks about how to get started as a beginner, that actually goes through the steps of how to do it. I actually show you what to do. And because I really like, instead of just talking theory all the time, I like to show you implementation and like actually what I do. So I have a video, but before I get into that and show you that, I want to invite you to my masterclass, especially if you're brand new. If you're experienced, that's cool. I want you to come as well. But if you're brand new, please come to this. It's a free masterclass that I do live. And by the end of that masterclass, I actually give you my free assignable contract. So if you go, you're going to get a lot of value because a lot of people charge for that. I'm not going to charge you. Just come to the free masterclass. Just register. There's a link below, but you also just type in painlesswholesaling.com and you're going to be able to register to my free masterclass where you can learn how to do this. But like I said, I promised you I would show you in-depth strategy of how to get, as a beginner, how to go through the process. So right here's the video. Stay tuned. Tune in and you're going to see it. So let me ask you this. What do you believe is required for it to be a deal at this moment for you to wholesale a deal? I'm just curious. I want to ask you.
I mean, the price has to be right? There has to be enough money in it in order for everybody to be happy and make a deal.
Do you have an idea of what that is? Like, because a lot of people, as they research or wholesaling, they have like, sometimes they hear of like a formula that's like 70% minus repairs, minus AR, minus your fees, your wholesale price. What have you heard?
But I heard now market shift, investors are going down to like, I want to say 60 to 70, but I've also heard at the end of the day, as long as they can make a 10% return.
All right. So you've heard a lot, right? You might be a little confused.
Yes.
All right. So let me show you what I do so you can kind of have a good idea of how to determine like what your offers, what is a deal. So I call it the painless wholesaling method. This is the blueprint. It shows you steps 1 through 10 on how to get a deal every step of the way. But the way I believe you get started in wholesaling is you have to, at first, mindset is really important because wholesaling, it's a roller coaster ride, especially when you get started. It's ups and downs, it's getting deals, falling through. So you have to be prepared mentally to overcome that. So what's the first thing I tell people? The second step is picking a market. It's really important as you wholesale to pick the right market, because if you're in a market that there's not a lot of activity, a lot of flippers, you're not going to have anyone to sell it to. So you got to pick the right market, and you can use batch leads. So I show people how to use batch leads to pick their market. You can do cool things. You can check areas. You can pull lists. You can find buyers. Let's just say you were in Flagstaff, right? You'd be like, oh, can I start wholesaling like a ton of deals in Flagstaff, Arizona? Like, is there enough volume? Is there enough cash buyers in this area for me to do deals? So right here, you can check. If you just go to quick filters, shows you that there's quite a bit of cash buyers, and that means sales in the last year or so. So Flagstaff would be good by the amount you can see. It says recent cash and hard money loan purchases of real estate. So they have automatic filters. It's really easy to determine like if there's activity if you're in a major metro. Because if you're in a major metro, I'd say 99% of the time, like there's activity just because there's a lot of people living there. If a population is big, that means that there's a lot of people moving there. But if you live in a place that's a little not populated, it's like 50,000, 100,000, that just means there's less movement, less people moving in and out of the state. That's like a general rule of thumb. So the next step after picking your area is my goal, and what I tell people is do not just automatically or immediately just go start marketing and just calling sellers and trying to get a deal, because you still are at this point, you've picked your market, but you don't know what people are buying. Markets differ all over the country. So you need to be able to understand your market and what people are buying. So the next thing I teach, and this is why I call it the painless wholesaling method, is I teach you how to network first to find your cash buyers. Once you understand and have about 5 to 10 solid relationships, then you can with confidence go out and start making offers. You can talk to sellers. So if you go to my mind map, I show you exactly how to run comps for wholesalers. So there's some really easy ways to do it, but let's go to step 1. So how to find comps. All right. So I use batch leads. I like batch leads a lot because it gives you a good idea of comps. You can just type in the address you want. Let's just look at this one. It gives you an estimated value. It runs an algorithm, right? Like most of these softwares, it tells you an estimated idea. So you get a good idea just immediately, like, okay, what it's worth. Even Quickly does comparables, and it checks a radius within a year, square footage. It does all that, and it shows you a bunch of different comps. So that's a quick way to do comps like immediately. It's just with batch leads. So the next one is Zillow, and then obviously MLS data trumps all. It's the best way to find comps. So that's how you find the comps. So you want to determine the ARV after you find comps. In order to start the process of like, okay, what is a good deal? You need to find out, what is this house I'm looking at? What is it worth if it's at the top of the market, right? Or it's fully flipped. So the best thing to do is find flipped comparables. If you're just finding a bunch of homes that haven't been flipped, it's going to be difficult to determine what it's going to be worth if a flipper goes in there and makes it really nice. Do your best to find comparables. The next thing that's important after finding the ARV, so let's just say, for example, ARV, you find a house that's worth 200 and you know it's worth 300. So that's the ARV is 300. Now you got to determine, okay, they're giving it to me at 200, but how much repairs does someone need to put into it to get it up to 300,000, right? Here's some questions to ask. So this says, are you working with a seller virtually, or are you working with someone in your backyard? This tells you how to navigate if it's virtual, what questions to ask, and how to get pictures. So this is the easiest way to determine a light, average, or heavy repairs. So it says square footage of a house, for example, is 1,000 square feet, times the cost of the light. If it's light, it's $18 per square foot. If it's average, it's 24, or if it's heavy, which means down to the studs, you got to do the whole thing, it's 40, equals your rehab cost. So for example, if you have 1,000 square foot house that just needs carpet and paint, probably going to cost $18,000 because you're doing 1,000 square feet times $18. Very easy. Didn't need to go dive in deep into like a full rehab estimate spreadsheet. I just need to know square footage. Is it light, average, or heavy? And if you're like, well, what makes something light, Nathan? Well, right here. If you don't have to touch the cabinets or the bathrooms and all you got to do is carpet, tile, paint and carpet, or flooring, it's usually light. It's a light rehab. If you have to start venturing into bathrooms and cabinets and kitchens, then you're talking an average rehab. If you got to do everything from a gut job, we're talking windows, everything, it's 40. And that's like a gut job. And these are average numbers, right? It could go up, it could be lower, but I would say 40, 24, and 18 are good. So if you're talking to a seller and you're like, hey, I'm interested in buying your house, and tell me a little bit about the property. And you're like, has the kitchen been updated in the last 5 years? No, it hasn't. Okay. How about the bathrooms? Have the bathrooms been updated in the last 5 or 10 years? Yeah, we just updated them last year. Okay, so I don't have to worry about the bathrooms, right? Then you're like, okay, kitchen, yes. Bathrooms, no. Those are okay. And carpet and paint. So you're right in between like an 18 to 24 because you're not having to do the bathroom. So again, really easy to determine what you need to get a property for. ARV, what is this property worth flipped? How much do my repairs need to be? Now we've gone over both. You've looked at flipped comparables. You know that it's worth 300. You know that this house in this example is 1,000 square feet. It needs $24 per square foot in this example, $24,000 rehab. So you have the rehab and you have the ARV now. Okay, so that's two parts of the formula. And then now you calculate your offer that you can buy it at. And the way I do it is depending on if I'm talking to an analytical seller, I sometimes even show them my rehab calculations and be like, hey, this is why I have to be here because I got to make some money. But determining everything we talked about, I can resell it for 300. I got to put in 24,000. I need to make $50,000. I hope you understand. I'm a business. I sometimes walk people through my numbers so they understand why my offer is $150,000 less than what they believe their house is worth. This is the quickest way to determine if you're talking to a motivated seller is forget all this noise, all this stuff I just showed you. Look up someone's house on Zillow and offer them 50% of their estimate. That's the easiest way to determine if you have a deal. Because if someone doesn't get off the phone with you, then obviously you have someone that you can work with, right? Another quick way to do it is 70% of the ARV. All you do is you find the ARV and you do this formula. So let's say the house is worth 300,000. You say, okay, 70% of that minus, we talked about $24,000 in repairs, minus my wholesale fee. I want to make $15,000, 171. If I offered 171 to the seller and they accept, I'm going to make at least $15,000. The flipper will have his costs of $24,000 in there. And then the profit, the expenses of the hard money, all that stuff is calculated in the 70%. That's what the 70% is. The 70% includes the 6% in commissions and fees for relisting it. It also includes the closing costs, the profit. If you like that information that I just dropped on you and it's helped you in your business, or you believe it's going to help you go to the next level, there's a lot more where that came from. Please like, subscribe, hit the bell icon so you can get way more information on this topic and how you can make money as a real estate investor.